Don't engage alone. We do this together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got it. We got
New
it.
52 booklet.
Somebody clip this.
Lois Lane sucks. Welcome to SuperWonder Legacy. I'm Jared. I'm here with Britt. How are you?
Oh, good. You just started off like that.
I had
Bang.
to. I had to. That's like low-hanging fruit,
Wow.
Britt. Low-hanging fruit. Today we are talking about the elseworld stories for Superman and Wonder Woman because it's kind of fun. It's kind of ridiculous how many elseworld stories. And actually,
Yes.
one of the other Comics League co-hosts was like, and so I told him about how like every time there's like a Superman or a Wonder Woman analog in like another publisher, they always have him with the Wonder Woman character, and
Yeah.
he's like, it's almost like they're trying to tell us something.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much what it was. It's that these other publishers know, I mean, they know an idea that's gonna sell. So it's like, why don't we make our own? But it's like a a blatant response of, now look at what you have as the original and we're making it. I mean, it's not the original, but at the same time, it's like
Close
we're
enough.
we're still and capitalizing it.
Yeah, so let's get started. So obviously, so again, I have the Kingdom Come background for a reason, but more on that in a second. So we're starting off with Superman and Wonder Woman Legacy Episode 7, The Elseworld. So first up, the Squadron Supreme. I have this omnibus, by the way, and this is immediately what stood out to me.
Yeah, I did not. Well, I found this out pretty much when let's see, Marvel redid theirs, what, 2019, 2018, and
Oh, you
so
mean the one that looked like a blatant ripoff of Wonder Woman?
yeah, that one,
That was like
Power
2019,
Princess.
2020 time frame, somewhere in there.
Yeah, so I thought that was a new team, but then with seeing I was like, oh, that's right. They did have it in earlier years. I was like, oh, this is from the 80s. Like, and they've been consistent with this couple, whether they, modernizing, of course. But yeah, this couple has been um, you know, pretty much prominent for that team. Whether even if they try to like do uh Zarda or whatever with someone else, it's always the Superman analog. And even if the Superman analog is with someone else, it's always one with the Wonder Woman analog. So I found that very interesting.
It is. Okay, so fun fact. So I read a lot of this series, and actually, so what happens, it's kind of interesting. So there's an alien that impersonates Hyperion, and Hyperion is obviously the Superman character, and the alien falls in love with Zarda, and it's kind of implied that the alien kills Zarda's husband, who is the Steve Trevor, except he actually ages, so he's an old man at this point. So then the normal Hyperion shows up. He's the one with the glasses and then the blindfold because he goes blind. The point is that and then she's like, I know there was an alien, but I'm actually still in love with Hyperion. I guess I'll just still stay with him.
That
It's
is,
complicated.
yeah, it's very complicated. I didn't even know the detail of that. That's a lot of drama soap operas, but hey, it worked.
Hell yeah. Next up, we have Project KO. And by the way, we mentioned this earlier on the show.
Yeah. Okay. So this I actually saw when I was younger. This
Mhm.
is, well, it was, I'll say, it was I think my uncle actually had the DVD, but the tape of it or something like that. I know that I saw it on a TV somewhere. And this is when like my first introduction of anime. And I was like, wow, this girl, red hair or whatever, she is so cool. So when I first started with New 52 reading and going on the Superman and Wonder Woman Tumblr, and just trying to figure out about the couple, and to say, hey, this girl is, she's actually their daughter. And at first it was a just a joke, but then in 19 I think I would say 1996 is when the comic came out, and they actually have Clark and Diana's name in the comic to basically say, no, this isn't a joke. She isn't like it's a parody, but at the same time we're very serious about this, and she is the daughter of Superman and Wonder Woman, and also her villain, her her arch nemesis or whatever, is Tony Stark's daughter. So it's like a DC.
This
So
is
it's
a
like
Marvel DC crossover no one saw
a,
coming.
yeah, I mean, and this is from the 80s, so it's kind of like this concept has been there for so long, and the children of these characters um showing how interesting they can be, especially a daughter. This is why pretty much Aiko is pretty much why I prefer Superman and Wonder Woman to have a daughter, is because of her. And it's so fun. It was supposed to be kind of like an adult anime, but they changed it to be, a little bit more kid friendly. And her powers, she can't fly, but uh, she does jump high, and she has a super strength, and she has on the gauntlets. And she also, there's one scene where she uses a sword too.
Oh, really? That's awesome.
Yeah, so I'm like, wow, this is really, to think that DC wants this kind of thing now. They want to get into the manga and anime type crowd. Is like, there is something that you can uh, make a deal with, revive it or something, and have Superman and Wonder Woman's daughter that's already made, and just revitalize it, or, do
Yeah,
that. It's
exactly.
so easy right there.
And Lord knows DC needs a lot of revitalizing. So there you go.
Yes.
Next up, we have. Okay, so let me actually click this. Astro City. Again, I have not read this comic. This is another one where I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, so this one, I read a couple of issues. It was 2013 when I think it was reprinted. And with seeing this, I think it was a Facebook group actually for Superman and Wonder Woman, and it was someone posting these images, and I was like, wow, like I was thinking at first that these was like Superman and Wonder Woman in a different costume because it seems so um
Spot on.
yeah, especially the Superman analog, because I think he is a reporter, and he wears, in one issue, he wears glasses, but he has white hair.
Okay.
So yeah, but the Wonder Woman analog, Wing Victory, she's just a normal woman. She's a normal
Oh,
woman,
okay.
and she ends up with the powers, but it's like um she still basically fights for, women empowerment. She's I think she's on an island too of women, everything that Wonder Woman Diana represents, she does the same thing. Um Samson, I think his name is Samson.
Okay.
He Samaritan. He does the same thing. I think he
Okay.
does work at a as a reporter too. And he wears, like I said, wears the glasses, and now his disguise is the white hair. He does have the Clark Kent type mannerisms and everything. So like, wow, this is so, like you said, spot on, that you would think that, this is Superman and Wonder Woman.
Yeah, it sounds exactly like that. Next up, Supreme. Again, well, actually, looking at this, I could definitely see at least a Wonder Woman similarity.
Yeah, most of these, if it's not the costume colors, it has to, it's something that or just a blatant rip off of the costume itself, you know. I think with this one, I haven't really read this one. I just did see the panels of it. But I think this is, if I'm not mistaken, this is Image Comics.
Yeah, it was. It was. You definitely tell by the art style, particularly of the two women having drinks over here. That is a very Image style.
Yeah. I don't know if, well, in that case, was it Jim Lee with Image for a while?
Yeah, I think so. And I believe, okay, Supreme is Superhero. It's created by Rob Liefeld. Okay.
Oh.
So it was part of his Extreme Studios. That's why, because the first appearance of Supreme of the Superman character was in Youngblood.
Oh. Well, I mean, that does say a lot. And I think that Rob, he is very vocal on Twitter about his stance with Superman. So I wouldn't be surprised, if some of the, and this is a thing with the Elseworlds and these analogs, is because they can't, how DC is that they're so like narrow-minded with ideas. And these creators that have these more risky, type stories, they can't actually do them with the original characters. You can only go so far. And I think that that's what's pretty much scaring them or something. So these creators basically just take the idea that they have and, make their own. Yes, it's pretty much like, yeah, you can tell that this character is a ripoff, of this one, but I'm able to tell the story that I wanted. And for some reason, that story actually does speak more to the audience too. It's because it is more creative. It is taking more risks and stuff like that. So even if it is extreme, that does speak to the audience. And I think that's why more independent comics are becoming more popular and pretty much overshadowing both Marvel and DC.
I mean, hell, that's why the whole Image revolution happened, is because you have because Todd will tell you that they kept telling him, okay, you can't draw it like this, you can't draw it like this, and Todd would say, but it's selling, and they're like, but we've never done it that way. So he's like, I'm out, and then he left Informed Image with the guys, and they had like the top selling books.
Yeah, I mean, I know DC editorial is so backwards at some point. I remember when the Superman and Wonder Woman annual 2, of course, it's Tomasi. And there was a scene where they were supposed to be in the shower, and editorial said that it was too sexy. So it was cut out.
Oh man. Wait. Here's why that's stupid. There's a panel in Wonder Woman's solo series of her in the shower.
Yeah, it was, well, I guess because the way, yeah, it was New 52. I guess because with that, she was basically, talking about water and purification, and it wasn't sexualized in too much. So, but that scene was pretty tame to me. The original artist actually posted it, and it's kind of like, okay, what's wrong with this? But then you see,
where is it?
Some of the,
I need that.
I will send it to you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. See, this is why I keep Brit around. She sends me all this stuff.
and he said that they said it was, too sexy. And then Tony Daniel, he also had a scene, and they said it was too racy, sexy too. So it's like, okay, this is this
Oh
is a
wait, is
romance
that
book.
the image that Tony Daniel keeps posting of them in bed?
Yeah,
That's too racy.
but you have these two powerful, like, well, they're not gods, but these powerful godlike characters together. It does probably invoke something.
Well,
So
yeah, and you have a woman who fights in basically a bathing suit. Let's not
right.
talk about. And you had a shot of her in the shower, mind you, drawn by David Finch, which looked incredible, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, to me, all of the Superman and Wonder Woman images are sexy because
Mhm.
I mean they're very pure. Um and it's but it does invoke something. It stands out. And pretty much what you're saying is, any other couple that has this sort of thing that is kind of like that's tame enough and that's not as sexy as, as this is, so we can let that pass. That's pretty much what you're saying to me.
Mhm.
But, you know, and I think that's what the only couple that has the sexiness that, DC can have pretty much is Batcat and
Yeah, Tom King's
Bruce
Batman Catwoman, baby. Yeah.
Bruce and Talia. But really, I mean, Batcat is toxic, and it's that, you know, that dysfunctional type thing
Well, here's the other
that
thing. It's like there was a shot of Wonder Woman in bed with Steve Trevor. They're both obviously naked, and her head was. There's also another image drawn by Liam Sharp that was her. So he's in bed watching. He's like, "You don't wear that much makeup. How much longer can it take for you to get ready?" And she's like, she's obviously naked, but we see her from the rear, and she has like the robe off, and he's like, "Damn." And so there you
yeah,
go.
but I mean, but I mean that book, I know exactly what you're talking about. No, well, Liam kind of complained that nobody like bought his book. So some of the images, and the thing is that was the first thing that he was promoting, and that was pretty much the first thing that he wanted everybody to see. But for some reason, it didn't really, invoke or catch the audience's eyes.
Probably because it's Steve Trevor. And here's what I tell people. It's hilarious, Britt. I tell the story every week. So when I published the anti-Lois Lane video and the internet explodes. I published the anti-Steve Trevor video, though. Everyone agrees with me that he is useless and doesn't fit romantically in the Wonder Woman world. He fits because I'm reading the George Perez run. He is my favorite. He's one of my favorite characters in that run because he has more to do besides be her boyfriend.
Because he is first being the first man she meets is, that's pretty much Disney princess fairy tale type thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's not who she's supposed to be. I think the golden age Wonder Woman, he was the love interest. He was to be submissive to her and
Yeah,
everything,
that was
and
when Marston
basically
was writing.
chase her around, and she rejects him and everything like that. So yeah, that's pretty much his role, is reversal of a female love interest, which does chase, the hero like Lois did.
So he is the damsel.
Yeah, he's the Manzel. And
Mental. I love
but
that. That's all. I'm going to use that.
yeah, but when they tried to give him a role more of now switching it to Diana chasing him, switching it to her giving up her powers for him, um, and everything, they took away her empowerment as a female character, as a, so,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's when her comic sales really dwindled and went down to
Mm-hmm.
where DC pretty much wanted to cancel her book. I think they canceled it for like a year. And
Mm-hmm.
that's when Perez re reboot rebooted her
Yeah,
book.
because it was after
And
Crisis, right?
yeah,
Hmm.
and so he just was logical, and he was like, her purpose isn't going to be chasing a man. Her purpose isn't going to be, why she left this island for him. That yes, this he does, crash on the island, but he's an old man. He's already married. It's basically her showing her empathy, showing her compassion, and she takes him home, you know. And that's pretty much what I envision for myself. Is like this person is on an island of women, that's pretty much want outsiders out. But she shows that not only does she show her compassion of taking him home, taking him back to his wife, but also, or his family, but
Hmm.
also that gives her a way to, go explore now the outside world. And that's pretty much what New 52 did too. Her secret origin was, he was basically called just her ticket out. It wasn't so much as romantic at all, So
Hmm.
I think that gives more depth of their relationship, is that I see him more of the big brother father figure. And the father figure, she doesn't really need it, but to still have that older male, human male figure though, to give her
Well,
just a different perspective.
well, particularly also if you go with the born from clay thing, because then she wouldn't have a father.
Right. So he gives her that. And even the big brother part too, he still gives her that perspective as an older man, that he's still human, completely and everything. But I like when he's married to Etta. It makes more sense to me.
It works. And
Um
actually, when you think about it, Steve Trevor and Etta had good chemistry in the Wonder Woman movies as well. So there you go.
yeah. Um I like that, he just he's protective of Diana more in a, like I said, fatherly big brother type way. He even says it. He says in Perez's run, he says that. He says, I love her as a little sister. And
Hmm.
it's like, yes, this feels more real for them than the romance, because it's kind of like once Diana kind of grows up, at first she's the fish out of water. She's excited. She's, you know, who is this, all these questions, and you feel like, or the way that Steve is written is kind of like he has control over her. He can tell her these things. He can give her a perspective that only he sees, in a sense of control of her.
Hmm.
But to have her just as a love interest, or to have her just love him that kind of way. And I really don't like that. And I feel like New 52 really leaned on that too much to make his character totally unlikable. He was very possessive, very, talked down to her and everything, and wanted to control. And I just really didn't care for his character in New 52.
Oh, me neither. That's when he got the reputation in my eyes of being a stalker. But moving on, Wildcats, Jim Lee's book, which I freaking. This is one of my favorite Image books, by the way.
Okay, so now that totally makes sense. This is um why, Jim Lee, he is, I guess he is a fan of the couple too, Superman and Wonder Woman.
Yeah, I believe so. And actually, if you there's this great video, ironically, on the DC YouTube channel, and it was put out there around the same time as Justice League 12 came out, and it's him explaining the thought process behind like Superman and Wonder Woman, and he's showing you behind the scenes as he draws that cover of them like kissing and the lassos going around them, because he was like, he even said, so with the whole flying thing, when he was talking about if they're flying, he goes, Well, because he went to great pains not to make it a copy of this panel from the Azzarello Superman story for tomorrow, where Superman reunites with Lois. He's holding her and they're kissing. Cringe as hell. But but he said, well, they're both superhumans, so I can actually have them kiss and fly. So,
I mean, honestly, that story and how it's drawn. Actually, there was an interview with him and Azzarello. He did admit that he didn't really like Lois, and they
you mean
they
Jim
prefer,
Lee?
it was both of them, I think.
There's a reason why this man is my favorite artist of all time, and I
And
just added another reason.
and I think he said that she was, you know how she is. She's very mean,
Abrasive.
very abrasive. I think they even said something about manly like, you know, she doesn't have that sort of femininity
God damn,
in
I
that.
love Jim Lee so much.
And they actually prefer, you know, the triangle to, well, not the marriage. They don't, you know, care for the marriage. And honestly, the way Lois is drawn, you can't tell the difference of her and Diana.
Fun
Like
fact,
when
I think I know what you're getting to. A lot of people have like taken those panels and changed them and like given Lois like bracelets, so it's actually Diana.
because and that's all you have to do is put the bracelets on because
And maybe a
her
tiara.
yeah, because that is how she's drawn. She's drawn to look exactly like Diana, from down to the Grecian like dress.
Mm-hmm.
Is like, you know, her the stature she has is very Amazonian. You know, it's kind of like, is this Diana? You know, you kind of pictured her.
It's like whenever Superman is just stuck in a fantasy situation, he's actually married to Wonder Woman. It's kind of funny how that works out.
Right. So yeah, that story, like you said, anybody that looks at some of those panels is like, that's Diana. You would really think so, unless unless you actually read the dialogue. But who, you know, reads the dialogue? Um, but yeah, now knowing that Jim Lee had this idea, it's like, well, now that he's president of DC, you know,
He
he
could.
can.
Because I got news for you. These two characters are the Wildcats version of Superman and Wonder Woman, so it just makes sense.
Yeah, so I mean, put that put this back out there, you know.
That's why I love Jim Lee, because he'll tell you about DC how it actually is instead of like the way I always talk about Jim Lee is he's always looking for ways to, and I mean this in the good way, update these characters for the modern audience. Because I know that's kind of a bad word in fandom nowadays, but with Jim, he looks for ways to do that, but do it well in a way that's respectful of the pun intended legacy of these characters.
I mean, that's what New 52 was for. Um, how he designed them, maybe honestly, the New 52 designs, I have no problem with them. They look they I like the Kryptonian suit because it was very slick, but okay, Halloween is coming up. Even when they have their Justice League cosplayers at Six Flags, most of them wear the New 52 suit because it just looks good.
It
Like
doesn't have the trunks.
yeah, any cosplayer can wear that suit and it looks so good and modernized. And you know, people have a problem about the collar, but
I don't care. Who cares?
yeah, but the collar is, I don't know, it has this majestic look. It has this regal look.
He
It's
looks
not,
like a god, essentially. That's ultimately kind of what Superman is. That's what all these characters are. It's modern like mythology.
yeah, but what they want with the old suit is no collar with, I think Dan Jargon. He complained about the suit, but the way he drew the suit, it was kind of bulky. It kind of seemed, it wasn't slick as say Jim Lee or Tony Daniel or uh, Jack Herbert, they would, or
Well, remember, this is Dan Jurgens we're talking about.
yeah. So the way he drew it, it did seem, too much, too busy, and how I think he said he seemed unfriendly with the collar, so
I
that's why
don't
he shouldn't have the
with a
collar.
collar. That's what makes him look unfriendly.
Yeah.
My God. You know who else drew it really well is Jason Fabok. Like if you look at like a Mesovirus or Dark Side War, it looks super. It looks like the regular suit, but with like armor. Another new 52 design, by the way, that I don't think gets enough attention is Flash. Because when it comes out of his ring, it comes out in like these little armor panels that all like form around him, kind of like Iron Man.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's it's given a more futuristic type vibe to, like you said, to the modern audience. That's pretty much what the
Armor.
audience likes. It's not so much as armor, and it's more just the slickness, because who in this age, a lot of kids question things. So the first question is, how does Clark have his cape, you know, in his uh under his clothes, civilian clothes? I mean, I've wondered that myself, like, okay, where's the cape? Um, and that
Remember this? They explained
question,
it. It's all like nanotech. The other thing about having it look more like armor is that you don't because if it's too much like spandex, you start to wonder. Okay, so I get that it accents the muscles, but it also realistically you should be
yeah,
able. I'm gonna try and be as like non-crude as possible. You would be able to see a dude's package as well. So at least with the armor, it's less like unbelievable. In other words,
yeah, it's pretty much, running around with tights on. I mean, yeah, it's just, in this day and age, it's kind of weird. So, especially in the sense of how they say that Martha sewn it together. So, yeah, in the comics, it's drawn to be like stitched together perfectly. But if somebody were to have worn it, you know, for real,
mm-hmm.
in it's kind of like you can see the stitches, you can see, stuff that needs to be hidden, you know.
Yeah,
So
so I'm like, at least with the armor, it makes sense why you don't see anything down there.
right. And well, then Jargon also said, I think he did say that why, like, you have the shadowy type uh ink there
Mm-hmm.
is to hide. And it's kind of like, well, yeah, but I mean, he still has on the red,
The trunks and those don't
the
those
trunk.
aren't I was about to say those are never shadow, dude. I don't know what you're talking about.
Sometimes, and it's, I mean, they can go uh to look like shorts. They can go to look like, you know,
The
just
the problem with it really depends on the artist because there are times when it just looks like a particular patch is colored that way. There are also times when it looks straight up like like it's shorts. And I think the problem is it has the belt. The belt with the belt loops make it look like that. I think if they got rid of the belt and like put like a red stripe, kind of like how they did in the new 52 suit,
52.
and even the Rebirth suit, because that didn't have the trunks either, but it still had like a red like
A red belt.
sectioned belt. Even Reborn just had a belt, which I felt as much as I don't like Rebirth, Superman Reborn, the suit with the belt I thought was pretty cool.
I mean, honestly, all they did was take the new 52 suit. They took off the lines kind of that was on there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he still pretty much had the cuffs, like
Mm-hmm.
that they took off the collar, but it was pretty much the new 52 suit. And they just made it, that's part of why I really did not like Rebirth, because of a lot of things that they did. It was like all you did was take some new 52 stuff, or even if you try to drag it through the mud, you still use the concept of it. And it's kind of like with the beard. Dan Jargon, he didn't like Superman having a beard. Um, he complained about that and saying he should be clean shaved. I think he said that in story too. But yet,
And the funny part is
for
that so you're known for the story where Superman gets demolished. So let's not talk about what you think Superman should be.
right, but people loved New 52 Superman with the beard. So here you go. You
I
have
wish they had kept that. As a beard bro myself, I want to be seen. I want to have representation. More superheroes need beards.
Yeah, Jack Herbert. I mean, the way he drew Superman and Wonder Woman 12 with the beard was so good.
Yes.
That it
Yes.
seemed so fitting. And
It makes him look older.
Yeah. So it's kind of like keep it. But now it's kind of like trying to have it with this Superman. It's not that he looks older, but he looks boring older. You know, he
It's true.
looks like the old man that he is.
And a fun fact, by the way, I was just skimming through the Tonight chapter you wrote where Diana gives Clark a shave. Well, because, and here's the thing, you're 100% right in that. Diana would see it as like, oh, you look like a barbarian, and she would be into that stuff.
Well, I mean, it's pretty much canon because Superman and Wonder Woman 12, even Justice League Unlimited.
Yeah, I love the beard, keeping it.
Yeah.
Yes, I know.
So that's pretty much been a thing, and the even in Kingdom Come, he had a stubble there.
Kind
I
of.
think.
And I'm not gonna lie, Superman may or may not have been the partial of the inspiration for why I grew my little friend here.
Yeah, I mean, it does look good. It just depends on the artist, you know, because some.
Yeah, I do agree with you. Herbert was great. I would love to see Jim Lee draw Superman with a beard or Jason Fabok. One of those two, I would love to see how they render that.
Just bring back New 52 Superman with a beard.
Exactly. Because here's the thing. They could keep the convoluted as hell universe on the side and make this the ultimate universe for DC.
And have him wear the jeans and tee too.
Oh, I would love that. You know, it's kind of funny. A lot. I wish they had kept that for longer as his suit because I think that would have been a cool new status quo. So, 2003 Squadron Supreme. This is another series I read the first trade of, and this Zarda is very very different from the Squadron Supreme one previously that we had checked out. I think she's like some kind of alien invader that is like inhabiting the body of Zarda, and she's trying to like manipulate Hyperion into taking over the world. So it's kind of more on the injustice-y side.
So, I mean, I guess we have both spectrums. You have the, you know, Kingdom Come type. I would say that some of these, you know, portraying the analogs, the copies. You have the Kingdom Come where Diana is the moral compass. So you have, you know, some of her analogs as the moral compass. Then you have, we'll put injustice. So you have the evil versions, evil copies doing pretty much the same thing. And I didn't know all that detail, but that's pretty interesting. I mean, if they do it right, I don't see it because that really, you have to pretty much change the core of Diana. Just her. It has to be Maxima or Cersei.
Yeah, if they wanted to go in this line and make it make sense and not have to change the character.
Yeah, you can't really write an evil Diana. She has to be, she can be jaded. She can be, you know, very hurt. She can be
like she was in BVS, maybe because she was very jaded. She lost Steve and she was like very down on humanity.
Yeah, she can be like that, but she would never turn evil though. You know, she'll be probably closed off, I would say. She'll pretty much be closed off. But the evil part, no. That's pretty much Maxima, and I think that's if I'm not mistaken, that is why Maxima was created, to basically be like the opposite of Diana in the first place.
Which is cool because I like her. She's a cool character.
Yeah, I mean, even that is something that DC kind of like missed the opportunity of. You could have Diana and Maxima, you know, versus type thing. It would be a very interesting idea. Injustice, Wonder Woman. I mean, I really don't want them to do it. Another video game,
I
because
kind of do, but because what they could do with this story is finally, because what the mistake they made with Injustice 2 is teasing up that it's possible that Superman could turn back good, and they didn't do it. Because I think that would have been a fantastic story of Superman's going for redemption, and that could have been the plot for 3.
I mean, the movie, that was just terrible.
Yeah.
In that in that both Superman and Wonder Woman kind of, I guess they wanted their redemption within that.
So actually, what's
So
kind of funny is technically that was the better movie. That was the better plot because they realistically acted like they would.
yeah,
Mostly.
Diana would, she pretty much would realize that all of this is wrong. You know, she wouldn't be. I don't like it that they made her. It's kind of like now the audience sees her as the main villain, and it's kind of like, well, of course they'll make the female, the main villain.
Mhm.
But
That's just Tom Taylor
injustice
for
in,
you.
yeah, in the perfect world or whatever, it would actually be three sides. It would be Diana pretty much trying to break up this whole, conflict, and be the, voice of reason, while Superman and Batman go at it like, the man children that they are. But she is that voice of reason, and has her own group of superheroes that's on her side. So it will be a three-way battle thing instead of just two, of Batman, of course, being right, of course, being the better better side of things, and the underdog that's going to win. And then you have the meta humans on Superman's side, which who they don't even have a reason to be on his side.
It's
It's
just,
like,
oh, it's Clark.
yeah, none of them have a good backstory of why they are on his side, why they chose to be evil. It's just for the plot. And that's the thing that DC has an issue with, is that they make these decisions to force the plot somewhere where they think that it should go, and but you're hurting the characters. And that's what injustice is, only to have these characters fighting each other. But after the first um game, it's really no reason.
Mhm.
It's dragged out, and you're just making it worse. You have to pretty much keep it going. And I think that's what Tom Taylor tried to do. He tried to redeem Injustice Superman, but at the same time have the blame all on Diana as the main
Which is
villain.
dumb as hell, but that was my one. That was my problem with Injustice 2, is really the way they treat Wonder Woman. So next one. This is another series I read. I actually made a video about this for Indie Wednesday, about how they have the characters. Now, to be clear, Lady Liberty is not exactly the warrior type that Diana is, but she and the Utopian are basically like the superheroes that people look up to. So that's why the analogy works. That she's like that this is like Superman and Wonder Woman, and they basically just Jupiter's Legacy, for those who don't know, is basically superheroes in like the 1960s, and they deal with like a lot of the anti-gay stuff that was around in that time period, the racism stuff, and generally being superheroes. And what's kind of funny is that he goes on business trips in deep space, kind of like any human would for business. And really what their story is, they're trying to apply like the regular family dynamic to superheroes,
which is really, really good. Well, they did have a Netflix show,
which
and
was
well, that
okay. I enjoyed
it
it.
was it was okay. It could have been better. Um, I think that what they was trying to do is be very ambitious. Uh, the I guess the acting was okay, but it was just like the storyline. It you needed to do the previous, you know, I guess start from the first books or so, like a prequel, and then work your way to here because you really didn't feel much for the characters. Honestly, they was kind of unlikable a
Mhm.
little bit. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah,
The other problem is that they tried to switch between the past and the present, and it just didn't work.
yeah. So just do the past first, and then work your way to the present.
Mhm.
I love that panel because it really does
I could
all of
imagine Clark
these.
and Diana doing that.
Yes, all of the panels are it's kind of like a in your face DC.
Yeah.
Like
Suck it, DC. As a matter of fact, you know what? Since you said it,
Yeah, second Warner Brothers.
there you go.
yeah, it's kind of like this is what you could have had, capitalize on, but we did it first. And then especially with DC and Marvel, DC has all these ideas and they have it first. But Marvel always takes their ideas and
This is not Marvel for first off. This is actually an Image book.
well, no, I'm saying in general.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Marvel takes DC's ideas and their characters. You have a whole, crew of ripoffs, but for some reason, for better or worse, they capitalize on it, and it's kind of like this is why people prefer Marvel over DC, or they think that DC, when they finally, get to a concept and try to make it work for them, it's like, oh, they're copying Marvel. Just like how they are doing with the MCU. It's like DC started this first. They have the original characters and everything, but somehow they let Marvel build their cinematic universe and, you know, pretty much just outpace them. And now they're stumbling and they have to. I know that Marvel is now they're kind of on the fatigue side, but they
And
still
trust
have
me,
a.
the comics are going down the crapper as well. The Marvel comics.
Yeah, so it's kind of like but they still had that like 10-year, um, you know, mark ahead. And when I see like you go on Instagram or you go on Twitter, especially during the Halloween, it is so many people that are using the Marvel um hashtag for DC characters because they don't know the DC brand. Even I believe there was a couple of news reports or news reporters that talked about DC and they still said Marvel. It's like just that's so embarrassing. It really is. But that shows Marvel continuing to build their brand, you know, while DC is basically, I don't know, want to be stagnant, want to be this middle road type thing. And again, you have Marvel, you have Image, you have any other independent comics company that takes the ideas that you already have and capitalize on it. And that is what people are going to gravitate to. And then here you go with DC has to keep rebooting, have to keep relaunching, and they have to keep uh pretty much pandering to the same audience that more than likely aren't supporting their books.
100%, particularly people on Twitter. Next up, speaking of Marvel, as a matter of fact, the house, as I call them because they keep ripping off DC, the house of other people's ideas. So, Hyperion and Thundra. I have this series, by the way, and so what happens here? It's hilarious. So Hyperion tries speed dating. It doesn't work out for him. As he walks out, she attacks him because at the time that this was coming out, they were doing another Squadron Supreme series going on where they're made up of different characters from throughout the Marvel multiverse. And so he's just hanging out. And they eventually recruited Thundra to replace Zarda because Zarda was a traitor in that universe. So Thundra's on the squadron. So he's just walking out of speed dating. All of a sudden, he's like attacked by a chain. He's like, "What the hell is going on?" And then she's right there. And then she like goes, I heard you wanted a date. My safe word is patriarchy, which is a little on the nose, but so they fight and then eventually they start making out, and I'm like, okay. But I love this panel. Zooming on their mouths, you can see like the shining of the saliva right up there. And then what you didn't see is that in the next panel after this, they actually had sex on a water tower.
Oh wow, that is a lot.
And then I believe they stayed together after the series wrapped up. So she's essentially a way more aggressive Diana.
Wow. That is a lot. I didn't know that. I don't know if I wanted to know.
It's such a good series too. It's so funny because it's like, so he, at the same time, he's like traveling around the United States in a truck trying to like learn about America and humanity and stuff. And then this happens and he's like, well, wow. All right.
That's very interesting. Honestly, I probably will have to read this whole series now.
It's so good
for giggles.
It's so funny just to see him going through like because previous to this, it's like a 9-panel grid of him going through speed dating. It's so funny.
Wow.
It's so good, but and again, so essentially, he's basically like Superman. Essentially, Hyperion in this series is new 52 Superman in terms of like attitude and stuff, and she's like new 52 Wonder Woman, but way more aggressive, as you can see here. I mean, she meets him and then he instantly starts a fight and is throwing him against trucks and stuff. That's considered foreplay.
Actually, that's kind of like Miller, Frank Miller's Diana.
Yeah, actually, wait, I forgot this other thing. So at the end of the Squadron Supreme series, she has to stay behind to like help because she lives in another dimension. She has to stay there to rule the kingdom. And then it cuts to this. And so in this Hyperion series, he's seeing her for the first time. And he's like, wait a second, weren't you in that other dimension? She's like, yeah, but I got lonely. That is awesome.
Wow. You see, this is what I'm talking about. Marvel takes these. Well, I guess that is why Marvel is so known, because it can be like, I guess, the craziest idea, but at the same time it's so entertaining, and DC just does not have this kind of entertainment anymore.
They do in back issues, but in the modern stuff, no. And by the way, so this series I believe only lasted about 6 issues, but it's well worth the 6 issues. Well worth it, particularly if you read this with the Squadron series that was coming out at the same time. And I'll send you a list of this stuff because these are the series because their first storyline with the Squadron is they're trying to prove that they're going to be the superheroes that'll do what's necessary. So they go to Namor, who is a little context. So in the Marvel, there's this group called the Illuminati, and basically what that is, it's all of the representatives of the particular like groups of magic. You have Doctor Strange for magic, Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four for science, Black Panther because of Wakanda and the like. So at the time, they're doing a storyline where the multiversal worlds are actually starting to collide. It's called Incursion. So the Squadron, the Illuminati has to choose to destroy certain worlds. So they destroy unknowingly all of those Squadron members' worlds. So the Squadron are like really pissed off. So when they first see Namor, Hyperion heat visions his head off
Oh
like
wow.
decapitates him with the heat vision, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we're doing what your superheroes won't do."
Wow.
It's so
That's
badass.
yeah, I'll definitely be reading that soon.
Oh, and Zarda, after they discover she's a traitor, what she does, she retreats, and then she basically takes over Marvel's version of War World. Like she
Oh,
fights in the pits, becomes so good, and murders people to the point where they're like, "You're in charge now. You're the queen."
oh my God.
It's so
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, I'll definitely give that a read.
It's my favorite Marvel series they have ever done. And so now we have Sky High with the Commander and Jetstream, basically Superman and Wonder Woman. But and fun fact, Linda Carter's in this movie.
Yeah, and she gives a little homage as Wonder Woman.
Mm-hmm.
That Disney, you know, I mean, they always make pop culture references.
Mm-hmm.
So this was pretty nice. I mean, honestly, you can just by seeing just the picture alone, you would know that this is Superman and Wonder Woman
Mm-hmm.
because her the breastplate is kind of like and Diana's is just like a wing or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
and then his is sort of like the S, the Signia crest is just a shield. So it's
Actually, it's
kind of
kind
like
of
yeah,
funny. His suit looks a lot like the new 52 Superman suit. Even
yeah,
has basically a collar.
a collar, yeah, and he's not considered as a a villain or uh
He's friendly. He has the bright colors in it. Now if new 52 Superman had the new 52 suit, but it was the black suit, then I would say maybe he looks a little less friendly, but he still had the blue, red, and gold.
yeah. I mean, I like the black suit. Honestly,
Me
I
too.
mean, New 52 is it was flawed. It was, but the suit designs,
There
were
you go.
so slick and you could do no wrong with them. Um, Honestly, if you put the new 52 suit as white and gold, I would love that.
That'd be
Uh,
actually pretty cool. And by the way, so fun fact, in the Snyder cut, the black suit is actually in VFX.
oh yeah, yeah. It was originally the blue, red, and gold, but yeah,
Because going into it, Warner Brothers was like totally on the not dark train because everyone complained about BVS. Well, not everyone, but the minority that Warner Brothers apparently listened to. So they wanted him to keep the suit in. So what Zach did is he remade he had the Superman suit remade and it's super bright and everything. It's made a certain way so if he ever got the authorization to do the black suit, he could just go into Photoshop and just flip a switch and it turns black.
I mean, it looked pretty good
You'd
that you
never
couldn't
know.
really tell. Yeah,
If you
you
look at it,
couldn't
you'd
tell.
never. And that's the thing about Zach. He knows how to hide the effects in a way that you're like, wait, really?
Well, that's better than how they tried to hide the mustache.
That was, yeah, that it's a trying time. So now we're back to DC with Gods and Monsters. And by the way, this is one of my favorite DC animated movies.
Yeah, this was very interesting, and the fact that it's made by Bruce Timm is
Mm-hmm.
surprising because you would think that he would want the Becca, who is Wonder Woman, to be fawning over the
Kirk Langstrom.
yeah, the Batman. I mean, you would think so, but you have her pretty much in this. She's not actually in a relationship with that Superman,
Mm-mm.
her name, but you can tell that they care about each other. And especially within the comic tie-in too, it's basically a sexual relationship,
Mm-hmm.
but towards the as the comic progresses, you can tell that they really do care about each other. Even in the movie at the end, they
You can see that.
yeah,
You can see if they don't in the beginning of the movie, they grow too, which is kind of, and And it's actually it's interesting, and it is interesting that this is a Bruce Timm project, because otherwise Batman would be with a very 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 under below his age young girl named Barbara, maybe. Yes, I'm
Yeah, I
never gonna
mean, like
let that go.
he already did the Killing Joke. So
Did you really have
yeah,
to mention that? So Justice League Beyond, which the Lord Superman and at first Lord Wonder Woman, but then isn't it like the Prime Wonder Woman, at least the Wonder Woman from like the DCAU, goes
yeah.
to this world and then marries Superman as like a peace thing?
So she goes to this world because Prime Batman rejected her. So she goes to that world to
Wow.
go marry Lord Batman. And it's kind of like, okay, come on. Like
So
that,
you're marrying a worse version of the dude that rejected you. Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah. So and then that Wonder Woman kills Lord Batman. Uh, Wonder Woman kills Lord Batman, and then Prime Wonder Woman, I believe, kills her, and so they end up she ends up having to marry Lord Superman, and they marry out of political reasons of trying to make peace, and the baby that they have is genetically like a test tube baby,
Hmm.
and he is kidnapped, and he's kidnapped by Brainiac and raised by Zach Shar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think he comes back as like a little preteen, and he meets his father, his real father. He meets Diana, but I think that he rejects her because I mean this Diana is just so not Wonder Woman at all. All she cares about is trying to get with a Batman.
Which
Even
explains its ties to the DCAU.
even when she comes back to her prime world, um, to her original world, she goes to that old man Bruce, and she sees him, and she sees how old he is and everything, but it still feels like she's trying to get with him.
Oh
Um,
my god.
I mean, even that Bruce, I mean, he basically said, even in Batman Beyond, was that all the women that he's been with or whatever, he didn't really care for. So it's like,
And he
why
wasn't
is she,
even with Wonder Woman, so there you go.
yeah, so why is she still after this time she is chasing him? So that's just her whole role. Her whole, they didn't have anything for her. Bruce Timm and whoever else produced the show, they didn't have anything for her. So it
Paul
was
Dini.
just um so it was just like turn her into a pig, have her as chasing Batman. She couldn't have her relationship with even his friends, close friends with Superman, because it got in the way of Lois, even though Lois dated Bruce.
Even though
Even
also when you think about it, in Justice League, Lois plays virtually no role. She only shows up for like an episode. So I'm like,
right,
that's one of the pluses of that show.
and he also Bruce Timm, he tries to play the shallow card,
Oh
and
gosh,
and
yes.
say that Clark and Diana are like the quarterback and the cheerleader, and it's like, okay, but you have Diana as the cheerleader for Batman,
And
and you
Batman
go for
is clearly the quarterback of the Justice League in this universe. So
right, and he's the bad boy too. So that's very much a stronger cliche because the head cheerleader going for the bad boy, you see that on like these teen movies already. So you rarely now actually see that healthier side of a relationship of the quarterback and the cheerleader being together. So yeah, that
it's just astounding. It's just like you turned a symbol of female empowerment into a simp. Nice job.
yeah,
Next up, Sensation Comics. I love this one because First off, I love the different art styles. And then I also love Superwoman taunting Wonder Woman. That's awesome.
Yeah, so the first panel was from issue 15, and the art style is pretty good. And it's I think it's Golden Age Wonder Woman, but it was just this one panel. I think her and Supergirl has an adventure, and at the end Diana is obviously tired and she's like, I need a massage. And Supergirl's cousin can give me a massage. And it's kind of like, that there is like a double meaning to this in a way. So that was a nice panel to end the comic on. Then with Superwoman, that was issue 45 through 47. And Diana is basically with these group of girls, and they are asking her questions about the Justice League for social media, that they're meeting her and everything like that. And there's one where it says, does Superman let you win? Like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, and it was so cute. It's kind of like, well, yeah, it's very subtle, but you can tell that there's, the romantic type vibes that they have. Just like the more recent Wonder Woman Black and Gold. It's like those little hints that they have, like with Hippolyta saying, "Is Clark your boyfriend?" It's those little moments that are so cute. And then Superwoman is basically coming in and taunting her about her relationship with him, that you don't know, okay, so wait, are they in a relationship?
And then I
But
love
they don't
Diana's
actually.
response. I love Diana's response. She's like, "Oh, really? You seem to be too busy trying to seduce every male in the crime syndicate to be observing what I do."
What I love is that Diana, she doesn't have to resort to actually like the name calling. She just and the way you read this, she says it in such a sarcastic but polite way that that's gonna like get under your skin, and is going to make Superwoman so angry and stuff. And that's what she does. She basically, like, she tries to taunt Diana, but Diana, claps back. And it's like, okay, now she's trying to fight her physically, but she ends up losing, of course. And it's kind of like that. No, this Superwoman, she's supposed to be everything the opposite that Diana is. She is a very sexual character. She does try to seduce every man she sees. Her lasso is, I think, what is it, the lasso of submission or something
Yes,
like that?
a submission. Yes.
Yeah, so yeah, to see that, this is another thing I would really, really like. It's, you have to go outside the um the main storylines, because again, they are so restrictive. But these elseworlds, they can actually expand on these storylines of elseworlds. It doesn't have to be just a one shot. It doesn't have to be um um just, well, I'll say a limited series is tight, but just take those risks. And that is something just so missing from the main line. That's why I love these stories.
That's why for the longest time for me, a lot of the DC stories I enjoyed the most were the Elseworld stories because you could do whatever the hell you wanted with these characters.
Right.
Next, JLA created equal.
Okay. Oh, one thing about the Sensation Comics, there was also another
Oh,
story where it's kind of like a day in a life, from Wonder Woman 170, but instead of Lois, it's Clark, and they have a friendship, and it's so sweet that you really do want to see a story with just Clark um interviewing or following. I think that would have been better of him following her and going with her to these places.
Oh, I remember that. Is that the one where like she officiates a gay marriage and then he says, "Oh, I didn't know you were pro gay marriage." She's like, "Where I come from, it's
Yeah,
just marriage."
yeah, that one. That
Okay.
is such a good story that it should have been in the main line.
It should have been 100%. You can go with that. So, created equal.
Okay, so this one I don't really remember. I know that Clark and Lex was like the last men on Earth or something like that. And so they basically have to, repopulate or leave,
Oh boy.
something like that. But Diana and Clark, they aren't together. Um, I think that if this is the same story where Lois is pregnant or something like that, but she dies of
Mhm.
like giving birth or something. But I think in one panel when Diana when Clark tells her the news, it seemed like she's very sad about it.
Mhm.
And it's kind of like, you know that she has these feelings for him, but she has to repress it and everything. And when he leaves, they have this moment. He has this moment out in space with all the JLA women. But this one panel where he's with Diana and it's a quiet panel and they look at each other really sad and then he kisses her on her cheek and then he leaves. It's these quiet moments that really stand out and speak so much. I really don't care for the rest of the story. It's just this panel right here says so much.
Because here's the thing. There's no sound space, and what I like about this, yeah, nothing is said, but a lot is said. In other words, if that
Yes,
makes sense.
yes, and that's what I love about Superman and Wonder Woman is that they can you can take off the dialogue with the panels, and when an artist draws them just looking at each other or standing next to each other, they stand out and it's so much spoken. It's so much like even in Heroes in Crisis when Clark is trying to give the speech or
Yes, the
talk to
hand on the
folks.
shoulder, and
And
then when I love what he does, he puts his hand on top of her hand.
it's just like that moment. I
Thank you,
remember,
Tom King.
right, I remember reading the reviews on that part, and that was the most stand part that stood out, and that pretty much was the opposite with Lois. It was kind of like everybody was ragging on Lois. It was like, why did she do
That was
this?
one of the stories that made me hate Lois. By the way, didn't you do like maybe a something special chapter about that moment?
I did,
There you
I
go.
did.
I knew it. This proves
Yeah.
how much of a Night Sky Wonder nerd I am.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I did. I had to rewrite that because this moment was so powerful. And like I said, they can be so quiet and say, like you said, say so much. And yeah, with this panel, it reminded me when seeing this panel, it reminded me of that. And even though I don't like Heroes in Crisis because what it could have been, it didn't become that, and Lois's whole part in it. I mean, Clark, he the excuse of being unethical because of your marriage just doesn't make sense to me. Um, Obviously, that's saying that your marriage is basically toxic or, you know, isn't very good if you have to choose knowing that you're choosing to do something so wrong. And
Here is the panel, by the way. Like, look at that.
yeah, he's so nervous, but just her hand, gives him that sense of peace, that confidence back. But here you have Lois that's basically like the devil on his shoulder and saying, well, she selfishly just want this story out and you're
Exactly.
ruining other people's lives. Here's Diana trying to help him be confident, be again the moral compass, the voice of reason, or the silent on his side. And here's Lois, you know, making a mess of things. It's kind of like, why wasn't Lois there with him? I know that, of course, they're not gonna know that she's who she's supposed to be to him,
Well, she
but
wasn't even in
still,
the
it's kind of
crowd or anything like that. I'm just like, and you notice Wonder Woman's the only Justice League member on the stage with him too. That's another really significant part there.
right.
So next one, JLA, the Secret Society.
Okay, so here's another one that I haven't quite read yet, but with these panels, I guess Clark is old, he's dying, and when he finally does pass on, Diana basically tells well, kind of let it be known her feelings that she's had for him. Um, she doesn't age. It's been a long time that Diana is immortal,
Mhm.
but they go back and forth with Superman. And honestly, I want him
Mhm.
to be immortal. Um, Aging slowly as a Kryptonian, that works too. But
Yeah, because I'm
I
like, wait
don't.
a second. If his cells are constantly being renewed by solar radiation, why is he growing old?
Yeah, but yeah, that's where that comes to play. That's why I really much prefer just the, if not immortal, just age slower.
Mhm.
Um, and that's why Kingdom Come has the best ending, because the world is, it's changing, it's evolving, it's for better or worse. And but in at that 1,000 year or whatever, how the sun, has probably changed, the atmosphere or whatever has probably changed. Now that is when you see the age progression or something like
Mhm.
that.
Yeah,
But
are you talking about the periods of panels at the end that like has like 500 years from now, 200,
yeah,
1,000 years from now?
yeah, it, it's basically giving you the idea that how just the climate and everything has changed. So yeah, you can see that Clark and Diana pretty much age naturally. They just age slower, and that doesn't take away their humanity. I think what takes away their humanity is pretty much how in DC 1 million, how he puts, I think, Lois's soul or brain or whatever in an android for
Mhm.
her to come back to life. That's weird. Um, Tom King wrote, he was the last survivor, but he was given Lois immortal juice.
Yeah, I
Just
remember that. And I was like,
yeah,
oh my god. I watched that and I'm like, you could have salvaged this dude, but
yeah.
ah. Where
It's like
where
think,
did you get immortal juice from? Is what I want to know.
and it raises so many questions. It every time, to me, when DC tries to justify that romance, it's kind of like it raises so many questions.
You have to make so many leaps in logic in order for it to make sense.
Yeah, the if it's either Clark has to age the same as Lois, so like he has to be old when she's old, or um he has to die, or he has to become a recluse basically if she dies, or yeah, somehow she ends up with powers or whatever to justify her staying alive.
Like the
And
Chris
it's
Claremont Superman and Wonder Woman series, which was horrible, where they literally turned Lois into Wonder Woman.
yeah, that pretty much just shows that yeah, that's what DC has been trying to do, is turn Lois into Wonder Woman light, because obviously they know that they are, Superman and Wonder Woman are the better couple, but for some reason they are just so stubborn and trying not to, make it work.
The minute they try and put him, when they put her in the Hellbat armor, I was like, I'm out. This is stupid, Tomasi. JLA, Riddle of the Beast.
Now this is a one shot. The artwork is pretty interesting. It's
I
kind of
love it.
difficult. It's when reading through the whole thing, it's sort of difficult to make out what's happening. Um, but it's very interesting. It's a Lord of the Rings type thing. Um, Clark and Diana, well, he's the prince and she's the princess. They are betrothed, and Diana is tricked into breaking up their betrothal, their engagement, and then by the end of the war, they reconcile and get back together. I
But
think that's
the other thing I think is kind of odd about the Kal-El design is that he's bald, but they kept the S curl.
yeah, he's actually within the story, he's actually kind of ill for some reason.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if he did have some type of like well did have a he was in a wheelchair,
hmm
and then from what I could make out within art, he does end up with super strength, superpowers, or something like that. To but I guess he just doesn't gain any hair. And more,
Except for that one spot in his forehead.
oh, right. But yeah, but that was it's a one shot. So it's pretty much, a very quick story. But to see that these two are betrothed together to bring um their nations or whatever together, pretty much the opposite of the Batman of the Justice League Beyond story. Even though it's a political marriage, they actually do like each other. So
I
yeah,
dig that.
that's pretty neat.
It's very Game of Thronesy. So now, yeah, this one's a cute one. You notice they're in the new 52 design. So there you go.
Yeah, yeah, this was pretty cute. It's just connected to the new 52. There is a little panel or a little story where I think the Justice League is possessed, and he uses the lasso to bring her back
hmm
to life. I don't know if they're little ghosts or anything, or zombies, but he wraps the lasso around her hand, wrist, you know, and she says, "I am Wonder Woman," or something like that. It's kind of reminiscent to Justice League versus Teen Titans scene.
Okay, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and she gives him a little kiss on, I think, on the cheek. But there is Steve like in the background, all sad and stuff.
Mhm. I love it. This also reminds me of, so I actually got and have been playing the Justice League Cosmic Chaos game. That's like very much in like this art style. It's cute, a little kitty, but it's still fun. And the fun part about it, they have costumes from like all the different comic storylines, but they actually tell you the exact comics that they came from. So it's like it's really cool seeing like how surprisingly in kids games, DC goes extra hard in like promoting their lore, and I'm here for it. Speaking of games, Lego Batman 3 with the little, and I believe it's kind of funny. Earlier in the game, when we first see Superman and Wonder Woman, they're actually on a date in Paris ordering food. The Justice League alert comes through, and Superman's like, "Okay, it's time to go to work, Diana." And Diana goes, "We can never get a vacation."
She does the same thing in Justice League Action.
Mhm.
She is so
I
in that
love her in Justice
episode,
League action.
she wants to have dessert and she wants to get a kiss. It's like that's all she asks for, and it's just chaos of them trying to have just a normal date. And yeah, the Lego Batman is so cute, as a franchise. Um, I guess
I've actually played like so many. I love these Lego games, and but the fun part is that they did this because this came out during the time of the new 52. Because in the other
52.
ones they have the rebirth ones. It's actually kind of funny. Speaking of Just League Action, one of my favorite lines is that they have to go into Superman because he's sick. So they're talk. I think like they go in there. This is how Batman finds out Superman and Batman or Superman and Wonder Woman are dating. And that was a Freudian slip. But as they get in there, they're like, "Oh my gosh, this is so gross," something like that. And then Wonder Woman goes, "And I should know because I'm the one dating him."
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that scene. That was so cute. Honestly, they could have had Justice League Action run a little run a little bit longer. But I
Hmm.
think Cartoon Network, it's not, well, it was a the network pretty much was on its last leg. It has
Hmm.
been. They pretty much do reruns of Teen Titans Go, but Teen
Hmm.
Titans Go is like, well, their only, popular show. And they have other cartoons. But yeah, the only thing that pretty much kept Cartoon Network alive was Teen Titans Go. But they also just messed up the time slot of Justice League Action. I can remember when it was coming on at like 6 o'clock in the morning
Oh,
on,
jeez.
and it's like nobody is gonna be up,
All right.
at that time.
I got a story. So back in the day, little Jared used to watch the show Transformers Armada on Cartoon Network, and then they moved it to 6 a.m. So what my dad did, this is how much of a beast the man is. He woke up at six before like 5:30 a.m. every day to record it for me.
Oh, that's so
And I'm
sweet.
like, that is some dedication for you right
Yeah,
there.
that is so sweet.
So I
Yeah,
have like pretty much every episode of Transformers Armada on tape.
that is cool. Now, if, well, kids kids these days don't really care for,
Hmm.
that, but now we have DVRs that you can set a recording,
True.
and you don't have to worry
They
about
don't
anything.
understand the struggle, Britt. They don't understand. They've never had to struggle in their lives for this stuff.
Right.
They, they're so sheltered. Next up, DC
Yeah.
Universe Online. I freaking love this one. When and I love how many times that they reference Superman possibly loving Wonder Woman to the point where Lex is like, I always thought there was something going on between those two, and that's why he has her call him. And I love when Superman hears her screams, he opens his eyes to the red eyes. And by the way, in my Superman Rebirth fan edit that I made, this is what I
This is
was when I was referencing when you hear her voice go Kal-El and his eyes open.
Yeah. Yeah, this he's basically like anybody else. No, I'm not, going to save you or anything like that. It's all the chaos. Honestly, what is he? I guess he's recharging or something.
Yeah,
But
because what had happened is that in the prequel comics, what happens is so Brainiac is kind of like a prelude to his invasion. He actually makes Superman's powers go haywire, and Superman heat visions Lois Lane.
oh wow.
So he's like distraught with guilt, and this is realistically what would happen with Injustice. By the way, it wasn't like he would turn evil. He flies away and is like trying to like process everything and recover, and that's where we get him here. And then what happens is the way that the Justice League is defeated is that Lex Luthor defeats them, and then what he does is he stuffs Wonder Woman's body with kryptonite because he knew she screams Superman's going to come here, and then he'll be weakened because of the kryptonite in her.
Wow. I mean, this is already, just that little bit is already better than Injustice. And that's pretty much what, two of two of Lois dying
Oh, and fun
in
fact, do you know who was the chief creative officer of this game?
Jim Lee.
Yes, there you go.
Yes,
I'm sensing a trend here.
right. So let's get this trend of going back to the couple, coming back somewhere with
Yeah, but
Batman
by the
and
way, I love this line by Lex Luthor. He goes, "I'd always wondered why these two never became a couple because perhaps at that moment he was wondering the same thing."
oh, that's because DC editorial won't. I know
Yeah,
it's
it's actually it'd be hilarious if like Ambush Bug or whoever is like the Deadpool of that universe goes, it turns to the audience and goes, "It's because of you."
you, right. It's I like it that they do use some characters. Honestly, it all depends. But using characters as mouthpieces to basically say what the audience is thinking, you know, which is this. Is basically like these two characters, they work together. There's obviously, you know, romantic tension between them. So why aren't they together? Why aren't they together? And yeah, this. What I don't like about using characters as mouthpieces is um writers who have like a grudge against something, like they did in Rebirth. Diana was
Mhm.
used as a total mouthpiece for everything. She
Here's
said,
the I'm sorry to interrupt you, but here's my example of that. So in the Superman series, Wonder Woman saves Lois Lane, turns to her and goes, uh, uh, and goes, "Oh, Lois, I hope you don't think it's awkward or anything like that." And this is before the Reborn reboot. I hope you don't think it's awkward or anything like that. And the Wonder Woman goes, "Don't worry." She basically says, I can't remember the exact line, but she basically says, "Yeah, I don't remember. Don't worry, Wonder Woman. I know you're not trying to take my husband from me." He goes, "Yeah, just seeing this, it seems right." And I'm like, "Oh God, damn,
yeah,
Tomasi, you suck."
well, actually, that was from the True book, and that was
Mhm.
Francis, I believe.
Actually, no, it
Um,
wasn't. Well, they did it twice then, because I know actually it was a different scenario, because in that one, Wonder Woman's just saying, "I'm not going to steal your husband. I get it. He's not my guy." In the Superman book, they did it again, but this time Wonder Woman actually says Superman and Lois is the better couple.
oh my God.
I have the single issues. It gave me massive cringe, Britt.
Oh wow. Yeah, I knew that it was referencing Trinity, but I didn't know it was in that book. And it's kind of like, well, obviously, uh Dan and Tomasi, uh and Rucka, they
Keep talking. I think I'm getting close.
okay. They basically yeah, they were on a warpath of trying to, you know, throw Superman and Wonder Woman under the bus with a lot. And I mean, Rebirth, it really, like, what did they gain from that? You know, the the stories are pretty much forgettable now. You see on social media, especially Twitter X, whatever, they don't pretty much reference anymore Rebirth. They are trying to do controversial tweets with New 52. That's all you see is talks about New 52. People are going back to read New 52, and actually they're liking it. Some people are trying to um
Oh my
act like
God.
they still
It's even worse than I remember. All right, so I found it. All right, so here's what
okay.
happens. I'm cringing so much. I'm only doing this for you, Britt, so you better enjoy it. Or
Oh no.
cringe with me at least. So, okay. So, Lois meets Diana and goes, "Diana, it's so good to see you again. What I mean is, it's all right, Lois. I know what it means." So, Lois goes, "I realize seeing Clark and me together might feel odd considering." And then Diana goes, "Are you ready for this?" Ah, no, not odd. It feels true.
Oh wow. The true part is because she's the goddess of truth, or you know, hope wills the lasso of truth or whatever like that. And so yeah, they use the true part because with her book, and I think um Dan, he actually did say um he and Rucka was were like talking about how they would basically acknowledge their relationship. And so yeah, it was jab. So yeah, they would say this is true. Diana saying this is true, but with her relationship, and that her storyline was called lies, you know.
And it's like
So
her entire new 52 story was a lie.
which again, that doesn't make sense because she's still the daughter of Zeus. So I mean, so did this Hippolyta, was she the one that had the the affair with Zeus. How is she still his daughter? Um, the island. This is it was basically set as a 10-year span. So she left the island at 18, and she's supposed to be. Rucka says she was supposed to be 28. So within that whole time, what was she doing then? Because um, you could say that the island was fake, maybe that was an illusion, but you can't say her whole life of being in London, of being on the Justice League, even the Batman and Robin, when Batman went to go revive Damien, he went to the island too. So did Bruce hallucinate? Did he see the island in a different way too? You know, it
Yeah.
it it contradicts so much, and it
Because wait,
brings
here's the
out
thing.
so many
Did
questions.
Deathstroke also hallucinate? Because he went to Themyscira with the God Killer sword in his own series. Superman showed up, like you said. So I'm like,
Yeah,
what?
even
What?
even Hesha, they gave her a miniseries. They kind of did change her character a little bit from what Charles, what he initially had her, but it was still his character. So even she was still on that island that it supposedly was an illusion. So all these different characters, even Aquaman, the honestly the whole Justice League, they've been referenced to the island or any or anything like that. So was it all fake? But they didn't think that through. Obviously,
And
they
wait,
just wanted.
Steve had been to the island when her mother was blonde. So
I mean, he crashed on the island.
it's it's just when you really think about it, to quote Zack Snyder, when you actually wargame it, it makes no sense.
Yeah, it doesn't. Even Steve, it's kind of like, so he doesn't know um who he saw, you know. Um he doesn't remember anything
How about
from.
Hera or Zeus or Hermes or that had gone to the island at that one moment? Was this all some weird mass hallucination?
Right. Well, Rucka tried to make it seem like all the gods were pretty much um in on it, of making her hallucinate, but it really just doesn't make sense to me at all once you start actually poking the holes and questioning a lot of the things, especially when it goes to other characters in their storylines. When the island is referenced, or character like Batman actually goes to the island, that means, okay, so what did Batman see then? What When he went to go revive Damien, what did he see? Did he actually meet what was her name? Uh one of
Oh, yeah.
the one that bullied uh
Oh,
Diana a lot.
Aleka.
Yeah. So it was like, did he actually meet her? What happened? All of these stories, um,
Just make no sense whatsoever.
right.
It's honestly very astounding. Moving on. Justice League 3000. Okay.
Okay,
Do you know the backstory for this series?
I have no idea.
All right. So what happens is, this is taking place in the year 3000, and Argus had as a contingency plan, if you will. Argus collected DNA from all the members of the Justice League, who are obviously dead at this point, even though Superman and Wonder Woman would not be dead. So what they did is this is them resurrecting the Trinity by like cloning them. Except the clones are kind of diluted. That's why Superman's a little bit more of an a-hole, and Wonder Woman's a little bit more aggressive.
Oh,
That's exactly why Superman's a little bit more misogynist.
wow. Yeah, this I mean, I guess this was for, giggles. This
Hmm.
series wasn't really to be taken serious. Um, I don't think it sold very well
Mm-mm.
anyway. Uh, it I wouldn't say that it's underrated because from what I saw, with some of the panels I did see, it wasn't interesting because it does when DC has have these kind of stories, um, when they go extreme, like injustice like this, it seems like they are trying to invoke a Frank Miller, even though his world very cynical, very you can't really take it serious. The characters are aggressive and everything like that, but you are seeing it from the view of an aggressive Batman. So it makes sense there. But
Hmm.
when you are trying to make the characters like that, like, no, this is how they are, you are tampering again with their core. So honestly, I don't really see Clark and Diana or Superman and Wonder Woman in these characters. I really don't.
They're not because the DNA is rapidly diluted. Speaking of New 52, Earth 2, which yeah, this is kind of fun because remember this is the universe where actually Donna Troy is Wonder Woman's daughter, except she's called Fury, but it was later revealed that she is actually Donna Troy.
Oh, but isn't
Her father's Steppenwolf though, so there's that.
yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah,
they should have just let Charles finish his, story and introduce Donna the right way.
because you can't tell me first off a book called The Wedding of Superman and Wonder Woman wouldn't sell. Hello.
Right. And
And
have
if you actually go through with it, as opposed to what DC did with the Batcat wedding.
yeah, that was, I mean, I think with that, a lot of times people wanted to really rag on Superman and Wonder Woman and say that it was a gimmick.
Mm-hmm.
But they actually had like the build-up could have been better, but they did have a successful book. It
Mm-hmm.
was a it was a relationship that was progressing and was going into other medias, which they did have the animation. They did have video games. I don't count Injustice, I'm talking about like a Batman.
Mm-hmm.
um they did have other other stories here and there.
Mm-hmm.
That, you know, when you have that, that wasn't a gimmick. A gimmick was Death of Superman, where you have tons of variant covers, and it's this story, this one time, one trick pony, and everything crashes. Batcat, you know, Tom King, he did build that relationship, dis- uh, dysfunction, and the, all the toxicness it held. But at the same time, you still saw this relationship progress to be like, yeah, two broken people should be together and let them, basically wallow in their dysfunction together and let them be happy married.
Yep,
But
that works.
DC, I
Hmm.
mean, first of all, you you put the panel out early, like what, a few days before the actual comic comes out. So you have like 50 variant covers of this massive celebration of a wedding. You have this storyline, these tie-ins of people getting ready for a wedding of these characters, and then you just, especially with the fans that were so invested in it too, and then you sweep it, then you pull the rug out from under them and basically be like, nope, there's no wedding. They actually don't go through with it. And again, it came out, the last panels or so came out yeah, a couple of days before the issue actually came out. I was like, wow. I remember the comic shops were preparing for this too, and they were just like, wow, like this was a massive gimmick trick. And that's when DC lost a lot of respect. I think Tom King had to get security for
Yeah.
Comic Cons when because fans were so angry.
Well, the other thing, Britt, that you may not have found out is that they actually had comic book shops hold staged weddings for Batman and Catwoman.
Yeah, that too. I did see I heard about that, but I did see a wedding cake.
Yeah.
I saw yeah. I was just like, wow, they really were invested in this, and the thing is, the difference between Batcat and Superman and Wonder Woman is that people really kind of underestimated Superman and Wonder Woman for some reason. And it's kind of like, well, the thing is, they're two different franchises. So it's kind of like, just like how DC has done, is that they separated them. And it's like, well, so that is given a reason to not invest in too much. But at the same time, it was successful. It did, succeed. It did bring new fans, brought new investments and everything like that. So when you have a relationship like Batcat, which has been in the same franchise and everything like that, but you ruin it, you there's no excuse for that at all.
Yeah, 100%. DC and romance don't exactly go along together. McDuffie's JLA. I love. First off, I just want to say I love this JLA run, in even the Brad Meltzer parts that started off. I did not know that this was part of the run.
Yeah, this is we discussed this last week, I
Mm-hmm.
believe. And this is when they go to an alternate universe to save their universe. Um, and that Superman and Wonder Woman are married. He dies by Doomsday, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, of course, they won't let them have a happy ending. And it has to be the alternate of, the prime universe. So he stays dead. Um, But Diana, she honors him. I think she lives in the fortress. She honors him by having S, the shield, engraved in her gauntlets. And she basically says that even though if in this universe me and Clark aren't together, I'm still gonna fight because he's alive though. So as long as my to know that my husband is alive somewhere, that's what gives her, basically the motivation to fight and help, which is, that's very sweet, bittersweet, and everything like that. Much better again than Injustice or um the Dark Universe, the one where Lois turns into Eradicator Lois and everything. I mean, that whole relationship is a whole bunch of bad, you know, alternatives.
Well, yeah, and it's astounding, and it's really. I mean, but also, I had a pitch for a dark multiverse book. I want to run this fire. So you remember Super Doomed, right?
Yeah.
So what I wanted to do, that scene where Wonder Woman has to like wheel up with the sword because Superman's about to like kill the village, and she's like, "You made me promise not to that if it ever came down to it, I would do this."
Yes.
So in my version, she actually does swing down and behead him, and then she inhales the Doomsday virus, and you get Wonder Woman Doomsday.
Oh my gosh. I mean, that
Dark
I
multiverse, to
think
be clear, dark multiverse.
Oh my gosh, that is dark. That is
Can
dark.
you imagine
I
Batman? He's
mean,
like, oh, I can't catch a break with these two.
but also it's kind of like, how are you? I mean, it's already bad enough. Original Wonder Woman doesn't have weaknesses. She
Mhm.
doesn't have, anything, to stop her. So honestly, like, yeah, what is Batman and the rest of the Justice League going to do unless they go plead into the gods or something like that? Other than that, it's kind of like, well, you just gonna have to give up, and
Well, I
she's
can top
basically
that
gonna win.
actually. So Jay Heat and I are doing our New Direction universe on his channel. So we just did this arc called God Killer 2. And what we did is that basically Kratos essentially shows up and kills Superman. Well, he kills this. It kind of like makes it look like he killed. So Wonder Woman is so filled with rage that she gets a Red Lantern ring,
Oh wow.
a Red Lantern Wonder Woman, and she like goes crazy to the point where it ends up where he's alive and they eventually stop her, but she is like expelled from the league because she caused like a lot of collateral damage because of her rage. She's even like chained up in the fortress respectfully, and then he lets her out at times so they can have like a family dinner with her daughter, named after Hippolyta, mind you. But it's kind of like a sweet Earth story, and the next couple videos are going to deal with the aftermath of Wonder Woman being a Red Lantern.
I mean, honestly, pretty much the the moral is do not turn Wonder Woman evil because she's much scarier. I really can't take a evil Superman serious anymore. Because it's so many
Well,
that
actually, hang on real quick before you say it. This is the greatest segue into our next story, Injustice.
injustice.
Thank
Oh
you. That was
gosh.
perfect.
This is it's a great video game if you want to fight. I mean, it's basically Mortal Kombat with DC skin, but
What
the
they could have
story is,
what they could have
but
done
the
with this is have it where she's with Superman, but she turns him back to the light.
but then you will have Kingdom Come, and they of course didn't
Yeah.
want that. Um, Nether Realms, well, actually, they messed up a lot of their female characters in Mortal Kombat. Sindel, she was the queen of the other the outworld or whatever
Mhm.
there, and the latest there, well, not the one that's coming out, Mortal Kombat 1, where they are basically rebooting. It was the very last one. She They basically tried to say that she was actually the evil one all along. And it's kind of like, no, that is not the story whatsoever. She was possessed. She was, lost her husband. She forgot her daughter. She was possessed by Shao Kahn. He became the ruler, and he was the evil one. They defeat him. She gets her memories back. Everything like that. Everything has a happy ending. I think the husband comes back as the king again. That's it, that's all. But they made it more complicated this time to say that actually it's Sindel that was basically being like a Black Widow. And she's the one that seduced Shao Kahn, and she's the one that killed her husband. She's the one that doesn't really love her daughter and everything like that. It's like, wow, this, why at this time that you want to take these female characters that have such empowerment and you want to bring them down to actually be the ultimate villains for your video games. It seemed very, it really did sexist and misogynistic at that time. And that video game came out the same time as Injustice 2, where even there,
Yeah.
Diana, with Scarecrow, his toxins, it was kind of like pushing the narrative that she is the actual villain. It's like, wow, y'all basically are telling the same storyline using the most powerful female as the main villain. Why is that? Why does the men basically have to be weak like that? Why is it that a man can't be the villain? Like, what was going on within that year?
Yeah, exactly. But it's ultimately, see, the thing is, Injustice sounds like a cool idea. It's just it also led to the stereotype, because now a lot of Clovis and Wonder batters think that if Superman and Wonder Woman are together, it leads to injustice. And I'm like, did you read that story? As much as I don't like as much as I have problems with Injustice, the Superman being with Wonder Woman is not the only thing that caused him to go evil, but clearly not. Speaking of movies that had a disappointing movie to a degree, Red Sun, and my problem with this is that so the movie is pretty accurate up until the Wonder Woman parts where she goes, "I live on an island of only women. You do the math." And I'm like, did you read the book?
I mean, at this point, I think it was produced by Bruce Timm.
Oh, that explains
And
it.
and so at this point they are trying to be more progressive and have Diana be more like independent because in the first story she is like lovesick behind Clark. So it does make sense that you want her to be more independent, but it seems so shallow just to say that she's from an island of women. Like, no,
But
it's not
these
that
women
cut and
are
dry.
her aunts essentially, and her sisters. So,
Yeah, unless it's
well,
like
it
New
makes sense.
52.
It makes sense with Bruce Timm because he's the guy that wanted Batman and Batgirl together. So actually, it makes sense if he's pushing that.
Right. And I mean, if it's like New 52, when there were other like girls Diana's age and she grew up with,
Mhm.
that makes more sense than her being the only child on the
Mhm.
island. That's what I prefer when I'm writing. Sometimes you know, I lean more to that there were other Amazons that she actually grew up with, but she was, she felt like an outcast to that group. So that's where pretty much the only child, lonely child came from. That you can put that together is that yeah, there were other kids, other little girls on the island, but they treated Diana differently. Now you can do it like that, but to say that she was the only child, like, and then these other Amazons raised her and then, became romantically involved. No, don't, no.
It doesn't work. Moving on, JLA Act of God. All right, so here's the thing about the story. I like it to a certain degree. My problems are, so Wonder Woman becomes the stockbroker. Wonder Woman, she's a diplomat. You do realize that, right? She can still be a diplomat.
I
It
think
doesn't work.
at this time, um, it was a lot of political stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
And again, projection within the characters, trying to change the characters within a view that's more comfortable with the writer instead of staying within the character themselves. And given that this is an Elseworld, it you know gave that excuse to do things way to the extreme. And I think that is what Tom Taylor, he basically leans on that so much of his Elseworlds, is that, well, it's an Elseworld, so I can twist this character any way I want. And that's just the excuse that he gives. So at this time, that's pretty much where I put this story,
Mm-hmm.
is that it was very creative, it was very dark, it was very real, in a sense of these characters are going through a lot of tough stuff. I mean, it was bad. The story itself is extreme, but they do get their happy ending after all of that. But yeah, that's the only part I like about the story is Superman and Wonder Woman getting together, having this powerful kid. I mean, they always seem to have these powerful children that only get like a little bit of spotlight. But given that this kid is like he's about 3 months old and creating like this, he's like using some type of psychic powers. I mean, yeah, bring this back, rewrite this story if you have to or somehow give this world like a second chance or something like that, and bring this kid on, because that was, to end it like that, it seemed like, you know, they could have had a sequel to this, but I don't know if it would have been the same extremeness as this one, as the first one. I don't know. I think you should just lean on, I think you should just lean more on the kid, that being that I think Clark and Diana actually don't have any powers anymore.
They don't.
So yeah, so having their baby with the powers would be such a different dynamic.
They essentially have to become the John and Martha Kent for this kid.
Yeah, and that to me, that was pretty that seems more natural, just to be a story itself. If instead of the rebirth of, I think that is what they wanted Rebirth Superman to be, was basically Jonathan Pa Kent 2.0. And it's like with the farmer thing, and that's all he wanted to do, and it's just like, no, that wasn't very natural. It wasn't natural progression for the character. It just seemed like they wanted to force this idea, especially with John, for him to be the next Superman. And well, now we know, 5G, the failed, concept or whatever, never gonna happen. And now John really doesn't have a place, so pretty much all of Rebirth has been pointless.
Well, that's and by the way, so Jay Heat and I also did like a little analysis of Rebirth, and it turns out Rebirth lasted shorter than the New 52.
Yeah, it was only about
like
a year and a
or
half.
two, actually.
Yeah, it was only a year and a half because
suck it.
Bendis, he came aboard in late 2017, right?
Yeah, hang on. You said his name, so I gotta.
Why did you say that
name? I mean, he Rebirth was 2016. I think his run started late or mid 2017. So yeah, it was only like a year and a half.
I know. I love it so much, because I'm like, New 52 actually lasted like pretty much half a decade. So I'm like, suck
and
it.
It could have lasted longer if DC really sabotaged it. And it feels like the more and more you hear about it, the more it just feels like it was sabotaged prematurely, because of so many of the older writers.
These hang-ups.
Yeah, and so many of the older fans that's very vocal online, but
don't buy the books.
Right. And Dan, he actually did admit that with Rebirth, he does have regrets, and he actually said it, that some things that were brought back shouldn't have been. It's like, well, we know exactly what you're talking
Well,
about.
do you know what he says that now because it's now fashionable to. I love how it became fashionable to hate on Rebirth and like on New 52, and I'm like, I appreciate that because it's true.
Yeah. And I mean, that's what it is. It's always a popular thing to hate something, even if you really don't. And so the popular thing for DC fans is to continue to rag on New 52. I mean, it's done, it's over with. Um, with Doomsday Clock, it could be an Earth, but I don't think so. They can revisit it
It is. I
if
think
they,
it is that it is another Earth. In fact, I'll pull up that page as a matter of fact.
yeah,
I have to pull it because I remember I legit had to read this thing like multiple times to like yeah here we go to make sure I read this right because it was one of those things where I'm like wait did that just happen? Hang on, I'm pulling it up right now. It should be okay. We're bringing it into view right now. Okay, so what we see here is right here. It says Earth 52 is out there, and look at Superman's design and Wonder Woman's tiara.
right. Yeah. But they have with well, that was Doomsday Clock, but death metal changed everything to another like the end of that or something like that.
Well,
Barry Allen
hmm?
saw other Earths or something like that, and that wasn't mentioned. So I'm kind of confused on.
Well, remember, DC has so many multiverse worlds, first off, so it's likely he didn't see it because they could draw all 52 Earths. But, and the thing about it is that we haven't heard anything about the entire multiverse being destroyed, as far as I know. So it's likely that Earth still exists. So until I hear otherwise, it still exists.
It still exists. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it was published. Um, it was DC's canon for 5 years. They fumbled it. They decided to go back on things that they knew um didn't work, but tried to, basically uh promote it for nostalgia purposes and everything, but it didn't last. The thing is, the the details that people don't want to see. Rebirth lasted a shorter time than New 52. Out of all the controversy, all the complaining, New 52 still, lasted as long as it did, and it could have lasted longer too.
They could, of
Charles
course,
Soule.
they could, of course, corrected to repair a lot of the issues that they had there.
Well, the only issue they had was Superman and Wonder Woman being together,
Well,
because
I'm saying the real because there were some real issues in the new 52
issues.
with like timeline and stuff, but that could have all been like fixed by like a soft reboot with like they cleaned up a couple of things, but they didn't have to like to do the complete thing. Like, no, this didn't happen. We're done.
Yeah, and I mean, now everything is a contradiction, and now it's just a clutter Earth. So, and everything is supposed to be canon now, but it contradicts
They undid that. They
each
undid
other.
that.
Yeah.
That's what Dark
So it's
Crisis
kind of
did. So there you go.
yeah, so it's kind of like, now what are you to do? I mean, you can reference something back, but now you have to say like um and Jargon said that Superman is supposed to be like 38 years old. It's like, no, he is at least in his mid 50s now. He
Hmm.
can be, but he has a kid. How can he still be 38 but with a 10-year-old or however old John is supposed to be?
Hmm.
That doesn't make sense. Um, Especially with Lois too. She is a human, so she has to age. but they are so stuck on trying to make her Diana Light that she can't age either. You know, um, they are focused on there's these biological kids now too, but you want to keep your OGs young. So just give them, these alternate, have these kids. If you want to have kid characters, um, first you have that generation with Connor, Cassie, Tim Drake, and everything like that. That's basically being forgotten. They're like in the middle. They're like the middle child.
Mhm.
The child that's
They're the ugly stepkids,
ignored.
is what they're doing.
Yeah, ignored. But the young versions now, even if being a failure, they're still being propped up. They're still being forced, and it's kind of like, no, that just isn't how you're supposed to do this. New 52 was supposed to streamline everything, was supposed to clean up a little bit, give a clear, fresh start, even if it was some things that made it seem confusing. Like you said, they could have cleaned it up a little bit, but now you've brought back the, post-crisis type stuff, and you're right back to the problem that you had that caused you to reboot.
True that. So next we have Superman Distant Fires. I have not read the story, but the art is awesome and all the stuff here, I'm really liking it.
So it's an an dystopian
Mm-hmm.
future. Everything, Lois dies, everything, um gets destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they end up on another Earth. I don't think so. I think that I have to read back the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
but he sees Diana. They recognize each other and they become close. The only thing that's weird about this story is that she's dating or had like some type of romantic leak with Billy Batson.
Oh God.
Yeah, honestly, that's been a thing
Was this
where
written by Bruce Timm? Yes, I'm gonna keep
you would
harping
think
on
so.
that.
You would think so, but Billy is an adult.
Okay,
Um,
good.
yeah, he's very much an adult here, but it's just the fact that so many writers seem to like have a fetish for. I know that Billy is like supposed to be in his teens and he's having those, puberty type um, you know,
Urges.
things or whatever. And so of course Wonder Woman is gonna be that symbol of that, but don't you don't have to have them actually together, even in an alternate type elseworld. It's still kind of weird because you know who Billy Batson is. You still
Yeah.
think of him as that 13-year-old. So that's the only flaw that this story had. Oh, and the ending is that out of his jealousy, he does kill Diana. But her and Clark,
Okay.
they do get married. They have a son named Bruce Kent. He becomes a Green Lantern.
Oh, sweet.
Well, actually, I think he just gets the ring, and is basically a callback from Krypton when the Earth this Earth is about to be destroyed. So Clark puts him on a rocket and ship him off before the Earth explodes. Whatever.
Hmm.
So it's pretty much a callback to the Krypton explosion and all of that. Like I said, the only flaw is Billy.
Yeah. Next, we're visiting the universe of Frank Miller with All-Star Batman and Robin. Okay, so I will say there are a couple of things I don't like about this book. Number one, Wonder Woman being a man-hating person, but just the way Jim Lee draws that passionate embrace. Even though they started off, she's like, "You make me sick. I hate you. Come here." And I was like, "Okay," but still, it's like just the way he renders that.
This I think Miller's verse, well, I think he has said this, is that it's basically from his Batman's point of view.
Mhm.
So this is how he is seeing these characters.
Oh,
Um,
that's actually very genius.
yeah, I believe that is what this is. So that's why you really can't take it serious. So even with these scenes, you can pretty much reverse it, as in, have our own interpretation of what it must really be. So even if they do have like this intensity towards each other, this everybody's aggressive or whatever, it's you can think of it as they are having an argument, but change it the way you see fit for the characters.
This reminds
Um,
me of a certain Tonight chapter.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I was like, oh, okay, I see what you. By the way, I love Plastic Man. He turned into a heart balloon.
yeah. This whole thing, All Star. Um, I didn't know that this was actually a prequel. I didn't know that it was all connected. So this Superman and Wonder Woman were very young when they started their romance, and have been together for a very, very long time. It might have been like an on and off thing. Um, I don't know if he was with Lois, if he married her. I don't think so.
I don't think
So,
so.
but um, yeah. So it seems like I think that actually in Strikes Again, she she is alive. I think she is married to someone else, but at the end, I think she does die. But
She
yeah,
dies
but
when when I think Brainiac attacks Metropolis and the buildings collapse.
but yeah, but still at the same time, Laura is born and she's already like 16, I think,
Speaking of
within this timeline.
DK2, there you go. And I just this also started the stereotype that when Superman and Wonder Woman have sex, they cause like natural disasters.
I mean, the crazy thing is that every exaggerated complaint about
Mhm.
Superman and Wonder Woman, they take panels or pages, from stories that obviously you shouldn't take serious.
Mhm.
Like Millerverse is very fun and entertaining, but you really can't take it serious. Not
Here's one that I
not
do take
exactly.
serious, by the way. Here's what I do take serious. This story, because this story is criminally underrated.
This story is Dark Knight 3 is basically trying to rectify all the misconceptions of Frank Miller hating Superman. It was
Mhm.
basically like, no, he actually does understand the character within the story. And especially with Laura, he gave Laura more depth too, is that she's just a girl, this teenage girl trying to understand herself, trying to find her place. You know, you have teenagers that are going to be emotional, that's going to have these temper tantrums or something like that. And that's basically what she is and what she does, because and it's going to be exaggerated first because she's superpowered. She's a superpowered teen. So it's not going to be your normal temper tantrums, your normal, um, I'm going to go slam my bedroom door type thing, when I'm mad at my parents. She's not going to do that. It's going to be, just off the rails a little bit. But how he created these characters, though, is so real. Um, like I said, it's very entertaining. It is very I just wish they would, if they have Dark Knight 4, um
Mhm.
to hurry up and, publish it, because I want to see these characters again. I want to see now where Laura is. Has she finally found her place? We saw a little bit of that in Golden Child, but not too much.
Speaking of Golden Child, which I would have liked if Wonder Woman showed up once in this storyline. I mean, Superman does, Batman kind of does, But again, I just wish that we saw like the Trinity ones, particularly like Superman and Wonder Woman. Like maybe we see them sitting around for like dinner or something like that, and you see them as a family.
Well, I think that in the deluxe edition,
Yeah,
they are actually are on a mission,
yeah, I
but
do have that, and yes, I can confirm that.
Grandpa, he actually had a design for her, and she stays on the island to be the queen. So, she's doing that. But I don't know if she wants to. The way the third one ends, it seems like she wanted the kids to be in the city while she stays, on her in Amazonia, which makes sense because she doesn't. It seemed like she still doesn't care for or have reservations about man's world. Like, you see the gap. You have basically like a 16, 17 year gap between All Star and Strikes Again. Because where in that timeline, or where is that Laura was born?
Mm-hmm.
She just shows up as a 16-year-old, 16 to 17-year-old. It's like, okay, so obviously they kissed, now knowing that All Star is basically like a prequel to everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so when did she get pregnant? Where we need to see that. I
We
think
do.
they
I would
actually
love to see that. Actually, that would be very interesting.
I think they were supposed to have a another All-Star Batman and Robin, like the sequel to it or whatever, but
Hmm.
it just haven't happened yet. And I'm like, please do it, because I do want to see them make this official, because yeah, we missed a lot. They do this kiss, you know, and it seems more out of frustration that they do have feelings for each other, but it's so just pretty much on
Or
impulse. So
read a
let us see
certain
their
chapter of Tonight that explains it pretty well, as a matter of fact.
yeah, thanks for the plug.
No problem. I will 100%. I plug your stuff all the time. So moving on, Kingdom Come, one of the best DC books of all time. Fun fact: this when this originally came out, it was meant to be the future of the DC universe. So even Mark Waid was like, "Yeah, Superman ends up with Wonder Woman. Suck it." But back when he was brave. But I love this because it's like, remember, she's the one that brings Superman out of retirement, and she's the one that brings him back to humanity. And that's like in stark contrast to how a lot of antis behave, because they were like, oh, she being with Wonder Woman, he like ignores his human heritage. And I'm like, well, this story contradicts that.
Yeah, well, first with Wade, um, the initial story and everything that basically the base of it, the overview and everything of it is Alex Ross. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so really, Wade, the only thing is pretty much the dialogue and um trying to just make sure that it stays in line with the core of the characters. But
Mm-hmm.
but the whole idea of Clark and Diana being together was actually just Alex Ross. Um, he was actually going to have them together from the beginning, but it just seemed like, to me, that wouldn't have worked either, because Diana wouldn't want to stay in seclusion for 10 years, or you know um she wouldn't do that. She wouldn't let Clark do that. So having him be like this very broken man, and she's trying to reach him, you know, for however long she has been, then yeah, that made perfect sense, and that's why the ending is so much more earned, well deserved, because because we were able to see the progression of their relationship. the conflict that they had, the, you know, the tension that they had throughout the story, and then they finally got together.
And by the way, speaking of that, I love this when they take Bruce out to lunch in a Justice League themed restaurant, which is hilarious. They walk in, someone's dressed as Superman, and Wonder Woman goes, "Be nice, Clark." So
And the person has a mullet too.
yeah, I
So it's kind of
detected that
like,
too. It's like even double that. But I also love where they want Batman to be the grandfather, so they're explaining that they're taking the progress, like, "Oh, we have something we want to announce," and then Batman just goes, "You're pregnant." That's just
yeah,
Batman ruining the surprise.
he's like, they're like, how do you know? And he's like, well, you know, gained weight. And that's something you should never say to a woman, but, you know.
And he's like, "Yeah, your hair is shiny and all that stuff." Well, that's just Batman. The man has no social skills.
Right. But then Diana, she's basically like, well, I want you to be the godfather. And the expression of Clark and Bruce is
Even
kind of
Clark's
like,
like, "Wait, what? We didn't agree to this."
yeah, and even Bruce is kind of like, you want me? He is very self-aware of how dysfunctional. It's kind of like Diana, you know, basically the Batman, the Robins that I've had, you know, they've had like tragic, you know, times with me. So are you sure you want this kid to, you know,
Put him in a Robin costume and he'll take care of the Joker real fast.
right? But the um the JSA issue 22 epilogue is so perfect of the 1,000 years of after everything. Clark and Diana has like 5 kids. And it's like, wow, you know. And this is another thing. They have 5 kids. They have basically a Justice League of their own. We know that
They repopulated the Justice League after the government nuked them.
right. It's kind of like, okay, you know these kids probably have unique abilities. If we've seen kids with psychic powers, with well, the
Well, there's one
oldest
flying right
John,
there.
yeah, the oldest John, he is grows up to be Hyperman, who's the keeper of or you know, the protector of hyper time and everything like that. So it's like, okay, if he has those kind of powers and so
Speaking of
powerful,
Hyperman,
what kind of powers do these other kids have? And you go 20 years later, you see Bruce has finally passed away, and you see the kids older. You see 100 years. I love seeing Clark and Diana together with their white, like all white hair, and it's kind of like these panels showing the 1,000 years, no dialogue, just pictures. And it says so much about their life, how they were able to raise their kids. They saw the how the world changed, how it, if it, you know, kind of died a little bit, and now their kids, their grandkids, great grandkids, and everything is now, you know, moving to different Earths, or not Earths, but worlds. They are going out in space, you know, just exploring. And this should be the ending of the DCU, because it just makes so much sense. It feels
can
so
you imagine
natural.
if they did a Kingdom Come movie with like all the actors to like sum up, and it ended just like that?
I mean, that would basically all the MCU movies, if they do it right, you know, it would just blow everything out of the water. It would. Kingdom Come was already like a massive hit as a comic book, and with the right acting, with the, you know, right directing, it could be a massive hit. Whether, but well, I would want it to be a series,
Mm-hmm.
because the story is so big that it can't
True.
be reduced as just a movie unless you do like a Lord of the Rings type thing or something, or
They can
Titanic.
nowadays. I maintain that like the audience has been conditioned to do a 3 hour movie. They'd be fine with it. Plus, it's a 3 hour superhero movie, and people showed up for Endgame.
Yeah. So um it it would have to be a very, very long movie. It had to be or cut in parts as a movie, or just make it an HBO or, well, Max, a series or something like that, but with high quality. Um, and with The Kingdom, the
Here we go.
sequel to it, I love this part where um, Clark is right there when Diana is giving birth, and he's flying. He's kind of like floating off the ground, and he's so excited. And then he says, hello, Ma. That is just so sweet.
I
It
love
makes you want
Bruce,
to
by the
melt.
way. I love Bruce where they go, you could have been here for the birth of your grandchild of your godchild, and he goes, I don't want my eardrums to be pierced with Diana screaming.
Yeah.
That's so Bruce.
I mean, he he takes a moment that seems so natural of their friendship, of their, you know, it's like these, like I said, it's all natural. It's organic of these characters growing up together. Everything that they went through, you have now. That's what Kingdom Come really was to me when I finally, understood it was about. It was about, and these characters, superheroes, they are supposed to inspire, but I don't think that you can inspire by all the time having this kind of like happy-go-lucky type storytelling
No,
where
you can't.
the predictable of, that it's going to be a happy ending. This
Which is why I
story,
hate Lois, because it's like there's no stakes because he's going to save her. And the thing about it, and I 100% agree with you, and this is another reason why I like Zach's movies, because he didn't have to make this a constant joke fest in order for these characters to be inspirational. He was like, no, I want to show you them struggle, so then when they overcome that struggle, you are inspired.
yeah, and that exactly. It's like, yeah, a lot of tragedy, deaths, and everything. You see Superman at his lowest. You see
Hmm.
him, he gave up because the world gave up on him. And it's kind of like, you know, this is the reality of things. But when it was time, and he did have Diana right there by his side to push him to come back to do what he, needed to do to be the leader. You see that Diana, she went through so much. She lost a lot, but she still remained strong. She was frustrated. And that's the thing that I don't understand about some, well, it is Lois fans that are complaining, but to say that Diana is written poorly, or no, this is a Wonder Woman. She wasn't, and I don't like that in the news solicitations of describing the Earth, that she was war hungry. She wasn't. She was pretty much frustrated. She was um she was like a mother seeing her children, you know, act out in a way that that's so um they couldn't be controlled. They couldn't be, and that's the thing at the end. It says that she was a failed student because she failed her mission, but then she became a teacher. Diana shows, you know, she shows a better way. And I don't know why anybody would take that as a negative. She was at her breaking point too, where she felt like if a war must be, then let it be, because this is our very last resort. And that is something that has always been with Diana. It wasn't her first thing to go with. She's pleaded with Clark to come and help these, new roguish type heroes or whatever, anti-heroes, come and help us change this world back to how it's supposed to be, you know, and the many times that she's tried and she sees this going on. So now she's changed and she wants this to be right again. And yes, and she becomes jaded. But I see no problem in that whatsoever. And she becomes the Diana we know. And she becomes a figuratively for the world and literally a mother. And that is something that, I believe as a female reader that this speaks to me, that as a female, we go through things. It's very tough. We see things, but we, come back stronger. And that's what she did.
Yeah. And that itself is inspiration. So on that note, hope you guys enjoyed this extended episode, and let us know below your favorite SuperWonder Elseworld stories, if there's any we missed, because if you can find any we missed, because oh my god, was that extensive in a good way. But I'm like that was awesome.
Yeah.
There's like so many.
I wouldn't be surprised if we have missed some, and of course we'll probably end up doing a part two. Yeah,
there's always a part two. So again, drop below. So Britt, do you have any stories you want to tease us with?
Oh yeah, so it's a story that I finally finished. Well, chapter 1 of it, and it's not so much a spoiler, but Diana gets sick, and it's kind of like a super powered version of the flu, and Clark and Hippolyta has to take care of her, and in the midst of that, Hippolyta is being matchmaker, and it's inspired by the Wonder Woman Black and Gold story, where Hippolyta gets sick and she's asking Diana about, is Clark her boyfriend? So I wanted to do, just a little fun spin on that.
That'd be interesting. I like that. That sounds very fun. And in terms of my comic, still I'm doing the aftermath of the kiss now. It's going to be a little more extended than the kiss in JL12, because I always felt that kind of ended pretty anticlimactically, and I actually in 13 it opens up and she's like, I gotta go, fly up, which I get because they're younger, but I'm like, can you guys talk about it? And they did later, and I love how she's like, it's not a commitment. Let me go to visit your childhood home with you and make out in a wheat field. Yeah, this isn't a commitment. Actually, it is.
Right.
And speaking of tonight, there's so many of these moments. I'm clearly seeing the inspiration for like a lot of tonight chapters.
Oh yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot. No wonder, because there's so many tonight chapters. So there you go. On that note, everyone, remember to like, comment, subscribe, become a member if you want to support the show, and you get a shout out on every episode. Just want to give a shout out to my current members. We got Master Sergeant, we got Taladia, we got Daniel, we got David. Sorry, we got Martha, and we got Jenna. So thank you, everyone, for becoming a member of Comics League. All of our information is below. All of Brit's information is below. If you want to check out her fan fictions, otherwise known as the most comic accurate fan fictions I have ever read, and that says a lot. So
thank you. Thank you.
No problem. Stay heroic, everyone, and remember, Lois Lane.